Good morning, everybody. Pastor Nate Borman here, one of the pastors at Mount Lebanon Lutheran Church, here for a daily devotional thought from God's Word. We are looking at Psalm 18 today. I want to do two things for you before I read a portion of it to you. One, I want to set the scene for what's going on in Psalm 18, and then I want to raise a question from your own heart and life. So Psalm 18 is set in the scene, that the heading of the psalm, which is also inspired. We don't often read it along with the psalm, but it is also inspired, and it says this. It's a psalm of David, the servant of the Lord. He sang to the Lord the words of this song when the Lord delivered him from the hand of all his enemies and from the hand of Saul. He said, and then it goes into the words of the psalm. So what you need to understand when you read this psalm is that David is running for his life. When King Saul was the king of Israel, the legitimately appointed and anointed king of Israel, David was the next in line. God had already anointed him to be the next king. And Saul, for a variety of reasons, the biggest of which was that Saul had turned from the Lord. He hated David, and Saul was on a mission. His mission seems to have been, at least in the latter part of his reign, to get rid of David, and he's chasing him. He gets his whole army in there after David into the wilderness. They're chasing him around mountains and around rocks, and the only thing that stops Saul sometimes is a war. So God delivers David through war, which is an interesting thing. But what was so Saul chases David into caves, into valleys, everywhere. Saul is after him, and so you can understand how tired David must be from running all the time, how weary David must be from crying out to the Lord all the time, how sad David must be to be in such a situation that the king and realize David did nothing to invite this pursuit from King Saul. David did nothing at all that Saul should pursue him. David did nothing at all that Saul should hate him. And so David in Psalm 18, he cries out to the Lord, and I'm only going to read a portion of it. It's a beautiful psalm. It's really worthy of our attention for a long time, because there's so many verses worth memorizing, so many verses worth pondering. I'm gonna focus on a portion of it today, but man, if you want to task over the next couple of days, just read Psalm 18 again and again and again and again and again. Maybe that's something I'll take on sometime. Just read it again and again and again and again, because it's just full of good things from God. I want to read to you the opening portion of it. So that's the context. The second thing, I want to raise a question from your own heart. Do you ever feel like when you pray that God doesn't hear? That God is far away? Does it ever feel to you as you go through the course of life, as you go through the obstacles and challenges and difficulties of life, that God is far away? I certainly understand why it feels that way, because when you're praying and you don't hear an audible voice, it can feel like you're speaking to a wall. When you're going through difficulties and your circumstances don't seem to change, it can feel like God is far away. But David knows something, and that's what he shows us in the psalm. David knows something about the Lord. David knows something about his God. And even though David is running away from his enemies, even though David is overwhelmed by what's going on in his life, David is confident that God hears his prayer. I want to start at verse 1, and I'll read all the way until verse 6. David says to the Lord, "I love you, Lord, my strength. The Lord is my rock, my fortress, and my deliverer. My God is my rock, in whom I take refuge. My shield and the horn of my salvation, my stronghold." Just think about those words themselves. Just think about the powerful, protective comfort that those words hold. My rock, that's my God. My fortress, my deliverer, my refuge, my shield, the horn of my salvation, my stronghold. This is who God is for David. This is who God is for you. Verse 3, I called to the Lord. This is the cry of the heart, right? This is our prayer. I called to the Lord. Why? Who is worthy of praise? And I have been saved from my enemies. The cords of death entangled me. The torrents of destruction overwhelmed me. The cords of the grave coiled around me. The snares of death confronted me. In my distress, I called to the Lord. I cried to my God for help. Right? We do that, right? Sometimes it seems like God is far away, and notice what David knows. from his temple. He heard my voice. My cry came before him into his ears. What David knows, and what David wants you to know is that the Lord, and what I want you to know today is that the Lord is not far from you. He's close. When you cry out to him, his ears are not shut, his ears are not shuttered. There is no cacophony of noise coming into his ears when you cry out to the Lord. From his temple he heard my voice. My cry came before him into his ears. The Lord hears your prayers. The Lord knows the sound of your voice. You know how that is with a parent? I share this illustration all the time, but you know how it is when parents are in a grocery store and one of their kids go off wandering and all of a sudden their kid cries out? There might be 100 other noises going on all at the same time, but the parent, their ears are tuned to the voice of their children and they hear. There might be a house full of children who are playing, but when their child cries out, they hear. Right? Parents' ears are tuned to the voice of their children, so also is the ear of your Father tuned to the voice of you, so that when you call to him, your God hears. He hears from heaven and he answers. He hears from his most holy temple and he comes to save. David knows that too. God does not just hear, but when God hears, he answers every time. It may not be the answer that you're expecting. It may not be the answer you wanted, but God's answer is always better. God's answer is always best. One of the hymns that we sing, what God ordains is always best. Right? So know this today. When you cry out to the Lord, he hears. And when he hears, he answers. When he answers, he helps. And when he helps, he saves. So live in that confidence today, dear child of God, that the Father's ear is tuned to your cry. He hears, he helps, he saves. He is present with you in every trouble. He is, yes, Steve, he is our refuge and strength and always present help in trouble. So have a great day, everybody. The Lord is with you and will be with you all day long. The Lord be with you and grant you his peace.